Welcome back to another episode of Getting Personal. I'm here today with Patches, Senior Product Manager at Swells Labs, CEO of Turtle Moon, HGraph Punks, Moonshells, and co-founder and advisor at HGraph.io. How are you doing, Patches? Are you ready to get personal with me today?
How's it going?
Yeah, real good, real good. I mean, I'd love to touch on, a bit more of your personal story and maybe some, all the different projects that you're juggling right now. But first, let's talk about what's hot, shall we? The
Yeah.
HCS20 standard, the Hashinals. Uh, it's been 6 days, I think, now since the new standard was released, and we're currently, last time I checked, it's around 13.5 million transactions. Before we get into specific questions, like where is your mind at? What are you actively working on right now? What's going on for you regarding the whole thing?
Yeah. I think Cantor called it from an NFT or tier bot. It's like started a hackathon. I think that's kind of like the feel. Um, we have a Discord with a bunch of different devs from across Hedera working on trying to fix the indexing. I just woke up, so I didn't actually get to check if Tierbot fixed his indexing. It looks like he may have. He has 10.8 mints loaded. 10.8 million mints loaded. Um, but yeah, so it's been hectic but fun. Like I did get a really good rest over the holiday. I got to see my family, got to play music with some old friends, and I really didn't. It was like decompressed a little bit because it was a pretty eventful year, 2023. But at that time, I also got I've experienced that when I have a break and I'm not fully focused on a thing, then like in the middle of the night I'll wake up and I'll take notes and I'll be like, oh, that's a cool idea, or
Oh
something like
yeah.
that. So it was really good to just like relax, and then now it's back into the fire January 1st, and then release this on I think the 4th, and yeah, then it's just get back into it and been grinding with some other devs in the space to try to figure out this indexer and uh, yeah, just accommodate all the excitement of something new and something new to build and something new to build together. Which is again, it's been a while since there's been a thing in the ecosystem where all devs are interested in and like interested in helping each other figure out because everyone's excited. So yeah, a little bit of a renaissance. Feels like 2 years ago when we were all trying to figure out how to make a wallet, and then Hashpack came in. So yeah, it's been fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely been an eventful few days, and it's like you say, it's bringing everyone together, right? Which is really cool to see. For those who are listening in who have no idea what we're talking about, what are these HCS20 points? Like in simple terms, for someone to digest it for the first time.
Yeah, it's nothing more special than it's an idea of how to structure data on a Hedera topic ID. You know, um, when you take it beyond that, it's matching a standard that exists on a lot of other networks. BRC20 was the first. I know there's ERC20, which would arguably be the first, but that's not the standard we're matching. It gets wacky. But the BRC20 standard was the attempt to put a fungible token onto Bitcoin. I and Turtle Moon and Renly Ping, some of the shellmates, like we were talking to Vicente, we were talking to HBAR Gremlin. We've been discussing this. We talked to our lawyers for years, and it wasn't how to make HCS20. The idea was how do we create a way to reward holders inside of our project HCraft Punks without having to create a security, and because at that time the Libby case had just been just settled or however that went down, and it was like, hey, because they were selling a fungible token, they were wrong, and it's like, okay, well, because we were really close to figuring out what we were going to do. So from there, we were just like, okay, we need to find some way to reward our community, but we have really low risk tolerance for things like that. So yeah, it's been years trying to figure it out, and I thought I had it figured out about 6 months ago, 9 months ago, but then this BRC20 thing came out. So as I watched and was in the ordinal space and saw it take over, and then start to take over Doge and Litecoin, and now it's everywhere. It's a standard that just kind of Web3 knows. I adapted what we had created to use the same common attributes that they had. So it made it a little bit more of a approachable thing. But at the end of the day, it's just an immutable record of the movement of stuff. And so the idea for us was we're going to put out a points standard, and it's called the auditable points standard. And the day I released it, Matt Smitty's from Dover was like, "Oh, this could be for like ESG." I was like, "What?" It wasn't the intention, but I did want it to be flexible. So we did put in some stuff in there to be like, "Well, I'm not really sure," but they could do whatever they want with these things. So I was just kind of, I was surprised by that. And then people like Rooster Cartel, they're going to start using it for their hot sauce inventory tracking. Because again, it's just documenting, like you could deploy a case of hot sauce of 20, and you could put the UPC code in there, and then you could mint 5 to a customer ID, and the 2 field could be an internal GUID for your customer. And then when I index that, I can say, hey, I knew I had 20, now I have 15 in the warehouse because 5 went to this. And so it's there, it's immutable. So whenever you need to be audited for any reason, you put information there in this standard. So rambling, hopefully that made sense. That's HCS20, and then it blew up because of the other,
Yeah, let's get into that because there's the real use case for enterprise use case, businesses, like you say, auditable points, whether it's to track things or point systems. What's this other side of it? Some people call it, you've deemed it the Hashinals, right? Or that degen kind of more of the hype and the excitement that we've had over the past few days has been more so about that, right?
Yeah, and all of it would be Hashinals. And the reason why I called it that is because you're technically doing exactly what every other network's doing. We're just a hash graph, not a block. So when you inscribe on a blockchain, you're putting data directly into the ledger, and it's going to be there forever, as long as the blockchain exists. You're doing the same thing with HCS20. You're taking raw data and putting it directly onto the network. So that's why I called it inscribing in Hashinals. It's technically correct. It's more of a buzzword and marketing, thing. It's like, hey, okay, everyone else has these things. There's Doginals. Okay, so and it's the same thing. So we're doing, and the structure is almost exactly the same. What we're doing is almost exactly the same. So I was like, well, this is Hashinals.
We couldn't be left out, right?
Exactly. Hedera has a problem where we're being a hash graph and being, all the unique things about our network. It's hard and typically aren't in the discussion and the mind share of whatever the Web3 meta is. We're usually just on the side doing something really cool that no one's talking about. So this is an attempt to use the nomenclature of a common understanding inside the Web3, meta, and do exactly what that Web3 meta is on our network while extending it, because we're a hash graph, to crazy utility use cases like validating ESG weights through this paradigm. But we already talked about that. What are people doing on this one topic ID 13 million times? So with that replication of something like a BRC20, people are engaging it like it's a BRC20. So they're going and they're trying to deploy and mint all these early points to then, they don't know. Like maybe it's going to be used for something that has value to them. My intent is that these are fun. So if you're having fun, it kind of feels like you're mining on Hedera, like Hordy. You could only get one at a time, and there's 21 million. So you're just sitting there and you're just trying to mine the Hordy. It's minting, but it's just it's a different dynamic that we haven't seen on Hedera, and people are having fun with it. People are speculating what might this be. But at the end of the day, the reason why we created these points isn't to replace fungible tokens on Hedera. It's not to replace anything that we have. It's because we need this middle ground, I believe, that allows the flexibility of rewarding people with arbitrary points that can't have liquidity. Like if HGraph Punks created a fungible token and we airdropped that to our Punk holders, they could create a liquidity pool, and now that's a security potentially, and now we have to manage another economy. Like people already care about floor price, and that's a whole economy in itself. And then when you attach a fungible token to your NFT project, you have to be a pro economist to figure out how these two things support each other. And it's really, really complicated when most creators just want to be like, hey, like, thank you. Here's 100 of these things that you can go to my store, and that's it. And if you don't want to use them in my store, that's fine, but then you can't go and sell them.
I think
So,
people realize that too late. Like a lot of projects, they'll launch a fungible token and then realize what you just said, right? You got the NFT floor price, you got the fungible tokens, and you got it's a dance and it's no easy task, right?
Yeah, because there's an expectation of value with a fungible token, because I can go to liquidity pool and exchange for some other fungible token. And you can put parameters on it to try to make it not that, but then people will just be mad because they buy it in the liquidity pool, and they're like, well, so it's challenging. And as a creator, you want to have that flexibility of reward. So the intent of this was you can reward without the liquidity pool. People are speculating, people bought points already with HBAR trying to create exchange stuff. I understand it's a decentralized network. So what I did is I created an idea for a reason, and there's a bunch of utility behind it. People are using it for that reason. We have the public ID, which is really like a playground to figure out what you're doing. And people can use the public ID for their project. And then, people just took it, ran, and went so fast that all of our indexes broke. So that's what happened with the public one.
Is that because Hedera is so efficient that the computing can't keep up with it?
Yeah, I mean, we went from an idea to an enterprise grade throughput in a day. So like my idea was, when I released it, we've for people who are unaware, when HCS20 came out, I created and Turtle Moon launched the Turtle Moon HCS toolkit, which is a desktop application for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Anyone can download. It's open source and free. And when we released that, the intent was, okay, well, people are going to want to use this. And there's a couple projects that are doing it, like Greens, which is for the Moon shells. We launched the first HCS20. We have a private topic ID. We did the first airdrop to our Moon shell holders, testing out that system. And that was how I thought people would digest this. They'd go, oh, this is really cool. There's the public topic ID. That's cool. But I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to create it for my project, and I'm going to play with it. My tool still works for that. Like if you download the Turtle Moon HCS toolkit and your transactions are under 100,000, 50,000, 100,000, it will work. What I didn't expect was everyone was just going to funnel into the public topic ID. And I should have, I guess, but at the same time, I didn't expect millions. I thought people would go in there and play with it. I thought it'd be like a slow tick to a hockey stick, not like a day one situation. So that's how all of the indexes broke, was that I could take about 100K. I'm using the open, REST API mainnet. And at this point, at the peak, it was like 400 transactions per second, which is, that's just a huge application, and 12 million records. So when you're getting that much, we're getting 2-3 million a day. That's just enterprise grade processing of transactions. And again, it's been a fun hackathon to try to figure out that problem with a bunch of devs in the space. But at this point, I don't think it's fixed yet, and we still have to do. We can get into what a JUBILEE is, but we still have to do the JUBILEE and dictate what is valid transactions, because the scale. People are putting, as an example, putting commas in their amounts. I can't process that at scale. So any amount that has a comma, we tentatively at the JUBILEE, we think those are going to be invalid, because they break when we try to put into a database that's int with 13 million records, right? So anyways, that's a little techie.
Let's touch on that as you've mentioned it, because it is something I have here that I wanted to ask you about. First of all, what is a JUBILEE for those who haven't experienced maybe the Bitcoin one or the Ordinals JUBILEE, which I think happened recently, if I'm not mistaken. Ours could be happening after a couple of weeks, or whenever it's possible. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's just a preparation of people to say, hey, your balances might change. They might go up or they might go down. And I think it's mainly just to be like, hey, they might go down, because people are never going to be mad when it goes up. And the point is, these transactions that have gone in there, the indexer that exists in my little tool, and like what NFTer has had, there's some things like we need to say, hey, those commas are invalid. So if someone deployed a ticker with a comma in the amount that might have been valid, and now it's invalid because that comma in the amount it breaks our systems. So we're trying to prepare people for that. That's all it really means. Is like your balances might change. That's a JUBILEE.
And then it kind of becomes more standardized, I guess. Like there's some set rules and people know the rules, and then it can scale in that way.
Right. So it's not more about people, it's more about the indexers. So the indexers know the rules, and the rules create the balances. And it doesn't matter if you go to Hashgate or you go to NFT, or the balances are the same. That's what we're trying to get to. And today, I mean, last night we were getting close, but my personal indexer broke at 12.5 million again. So I don't even know if I'll be able to run an indexer.
You can't keep up, right? Like you get there, and then it's
if my job was still at HGraph.io and I had the GraphQL thing, I think this would be a whole trajectory of what I'm doing. But because of where I'm at, what my focus is on, I don't have access to that highly scalable infrastructure like we built. I don't know if I want to rebuild it. I know I don't want to rebuild it. I guess another way to say that. So I think. I'm trying to reassess this morning where I fit. I think I'm going to focus on the toolkit, the user experience. I'm going to include those airdropping tools and focus on maybe the toolkit aspect and the governance of the indexers and making sure that's all valid. But it's like 6 times, and it's not cheap to upload millions of records throughput. So after 6 times of trying to do this and it breaking, Splash is a mastermind with back end. I know enough to be dangerous, and at this point, I'm just dangerous, I think. So, but I'm still going to talk to Cantor, Hashgates, Pluto's in there, Matt Smitty's. We have a whole bunch of just cool devs talking about this. And I kind of forget exactly what your question was. I ramble. I apologize.
That's fine. Yeah, I wanted to ask you actually the edge, like because we're on Hedera, we're on the Hashgraph, the HCS20. How do they differ from like inscriptions on these other chains?
Yeah, so they're just much more efficient. It's close, but it's just way more efficient because we're not a UTXO model, which is what Bitcoin is, or we're not. All of the information is on the ledger in a linear fashion. So like the to field, I don't think is in a BRC20. You have to go look at the UTXO and understand the output of that transaction to understand where it's going to. So it's just like, and then you have to know what SAT they're holding, which like goes to what data field on Bitcoin that then is a JSON that you have to read. It's just like, it's wild. The fact that it's $1 billion market daily is technically insane, but it works. Again, that's where I learned meta protocols and market network effects.
That's the next point I wanted to ask you actually.
Yeah,
because I was listening to you on the spaces about that, and it's fascinating to see it happen, right? Like you say on Bitcoin, like you wouldn't even think it's possible, but it is happening. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I was, I think I joined Ordinals around 300K inscriptions. Shout out to Hangry. He was like, I saw him into Ordinals and I was just like, man, this just seems like a bad idea. Like why would you do this? And then he was just in my DMs. He's like, don't fade it. It's got to be something huge. It's on Bitcoin. Just go and engage. And I was like, okay, I'm open to this. I like experimentation. I think what they're doing is really, really weird and wrong, but let me go investigate. And so I shout out to Hangry, because otherwise I don't think I would have ever engaged this space.
We're all having fun today with the HCS20s thanks to Hangry as well.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly. And I got over there and I was talking to people. Actually, I started creating standard documentation. I started creating, I tried to get people to start building consensus in the indexers. And there's just no appetite for it because Ordinals is much more about sending it and making collections and the art and making money. No one really cared about the consensus mechanisms of it. But when I was over there, I saw how there were every dev in the space screaming at the community, just don't do that. And the community forcing the devs to accept it because they had all adopted it en masse to the point that if you had to figure out how BRC20 works because Domo tweeted it out. And in that tweet, he described how it worked. And Domo was really, really smart. Like I think he created and unlocked $1 billion asset market through a tweet. That's insane. But it was a really, really cool idea. my argument is always it's a protocol that should keep going forward. So they should move to runes and stuff. But people are really stuck on like just BRC20. But that's not the point. The point is I was there. I was there when Domo tweeted it out, and everyone was just like, "This is it," and it happened. And on our network, I had like a year and a half ago, I had tried to standardize data on a topic because I've been using topic IDs for moonshell farming. When we did the moonshell staking, the DAO votes that we've done, every NFT mint we do on Turtle Moon, they're all on topic IDs. We do that for fair ordering and ledger watching. So I tried to standardize this, but what happened was it was death by committee. Like, it was really good discussions with really smart engineers who cared what the structure is, but then it just never went forward because it was also in discussion mode. So the HIP is there in discussion and it never went forward. So I took what I saw over in Ordinals, where it's like, just send it, like bitmaps, just send it. And every dev says it's stupid, but then it works and it happens. And now bitmaps are way more expensive than they were if it would have been into amount. So it just is. Like, you just have to accept it. You don't have to try to reason with it. So take that, and then the main points are you have to make it digestible for regular people. You have to bring some contextual understanding and visualization to it. And it has to, sort of be a free situation. You don't have to have like a money gate in front of it. And that's what I tried to do with HCS20. We had the free tool anyone could use. We described what it was. We had the standard all written out, and we were using it for green. So we had a use case, we had a tool, we had it open source and free, and it worked. Arguably, that's the biggest tweet I've ever tweeted. 90K views, I think. So yeah, if you do that, you can force people to take that standard. And we saw really cool things, like, again, Matt Smitty's and Dovu changed Trust Enterprise API to use the standard because they've been discussing it with a bunch of people, but they're like, oh, here's a standard that's out, people are using it, we're going to use that. Now it's like everyone talks in the same language. So it took 9 months to learn a lot about meta protocols, but now we got our first one on Hedera, and I got a couple more cooking that will release over 2024 that I think will be just as exciting.
Wow, so 2 more dropping this year.
That's the hope.
All right.
That's the hope. But yeah, I got ideas.
And anything you can share at this point?
They're not going to be like this. It's not going to be like I need to mint things. It's going to be a little bit more passive, but at the same time, if we all agree on it, it's going to really help NFT creators. It's going to help them, I think, assess their community in a cool way.
Nice. All right. Look forward to that.
That's the next one. Yeah.
Nice. I got a few questions here that I collected from the community. The first one is, because you mentioned the greens points for moonshells, right? This person asked, what is the plan for points as it relates to H-Graph punks? Is there any plan?
There's definitely a plan. I don't think we're ready to talk about it yet. I know. So the greens and the turtle and the moonshells are testing. We're doing a bunch of testing. I'm testing the airdrop bots and other things, and they're our alpha testers. Once those things are solid, they will start to roll out to punks. But we have, Renly's working on a good announcement. I don't want to front run our own announcement. We got ideas. There's a plan, but it's not announced yet. And it's coming. And it has a little bit. No, I'll just stop there. It's coming. I'll just stop there.
All right. Another one here. Because I think I asked you the other day, when are we going to be able to see these points on our wallet, for example, right? And this question says, will it be possible someday to integrate Hashinals into SaucerSwap labs as normal tokens? They're not tokens, first of all, but are we going to see these integrated into different systems? I think that's the question.
Yeah. So you will. Right now, talking to Hashgate, I think their API for the index of balances is almost done. At least it was when I went to bed. I haven't checked in. So there will be an API, I believe, that brings balances that would, Pluto could take and put into Hashpack if he's, has the time, because he's still working on that Wallet Connect stuff, which is just crazy. He launched that token creation tool the other day, which is crazy cool. Excuse me. So, I do believe that you will see balances in wallets, and for things like greens, like with hazy hippos, like if you make your own topic ID, you could do that today. You just take the indexer and put it up, and you show your customers.
Nice.
I will be
They
creating.
could log in with their wallets and just see their balances and from their own indexer.
Right. So what I'm going to try to do is create a Discord bot that allows people to just put in your account ID, and I'll just tell you your balance, so that it makes it simple for creators. That's an open source thing I'm working on. But yeah, I do expect that you'll see balances. And then for the SaucerSwap Dex thing, as a technologist, you could figure out ways to move these around as if it was in a liquidity pool. BRC20 has tons of liquidity pools. I mean, that is their only fungible token standard. Here we have the Hedera token service, which is the best technology on the planet for tokenization, arguably. I'm biased, but that's what I believe. And so I wouldn't recommend replacing it. And I wouldn't recommend trying to create these, maybe it would be cool to have exchanges, points to points, but just not points to HBAR. That's not it's the opposite of why we created these, because if it goes to money, then it gets more gray for securities. But you could do it. They have things called black and white modules in BRC20 that allows you to create sort of like a liquidity pool type situation. So there's even a pattern on how to do it. I won't create those tools. That's not the point for me. But technically you could do it because it's just JSON. The problem is, and this is the point I really want to put out there. When you trust an indexer, you're trusting whoever is running the indexer. When you trust Hedera's token service, you're trusting a fair ordered ledger that is just like the top of the game of ledgers. So you're going back in time, and now you're like, I have to trust that dude's computer that my points are right, instead of a fungible token. When you want that value in the liquidity pool, anyone from any other network, it's on the ledger, it's on the base mirror nodes, it's a part of the system of Hedera. This is an external indexer that we're just using for points. And so the trust level and the security and all of that is, like me, NFTer, and Hashgate could all have indexers with different values. Who's right? Right? It's not great. So use it for points, use it for fun. I would recommend using fungible tokens because it's so cool on Hedera. And that's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, so much has happened in not even a week. So it would be interesting to look back in 6 months and see how it's developed and new use cases, tools. I think it's going to be a fascinating few months to see it unfold, right?
Most definitely. It's definitely the ETF approval has, to me, we're in the bull run now. Like, you can't go back to 15K after the ETF, right? So I'm excited for that. The excitement, hopefully this is an onboarding mechanism to bring people in and to test our network and to onboard our network with the wallets, with their HBAR to mint these things. And then they're in our ecosystem. So it's going to get wacky. I can't predict the future. And just have fun.